Can you afford to retire early? Is a question that many Americans have. It can feel like a far-fetched dream, but also it can happen. For somebody who is watching this video, listening to this podcast, thinking, I would love to retire early before traditional retirement age, what are some key points they need to know and or think about before they can make that decision?
If somebody comes into me and wants to talk about retiring early, there's a few things that I'm immediately going to be asking about. Number one is, how much does your current lifestyle or the lifestyle that you want to live during retirement going to cost? And I know that seems open-ended and it seems like an exercise that's kind of tough to go through, but it's really important to put yourself in that situation where you think about, okay, I wake up in the morning, I'm not commuting, I'm not buying work clothes, I'm not saving in retirement accounts anymore. What does it really take for me to live the way I want to live? And it's okay not to have the answer to that question down pat, but you have to be in the area code, right? You have to have a general understanding of what your expectations are so that you can appropriately answer that question. In addition to that, how much reliable income are you going to have coming in during retirement, or even semi-reliable, right? Do we have rental properties we're considering? Social Security, when are you going to take that? Pension income. If you have an annuity, do you have any income that you're expecting from there? But then finally, the last one, and probably the most important really, is what is the gap between the income that you have coming in and what you need from the portfolio? Because the size of that gap is ultimately the most important question. How much do you need to take in withdrawals from the portfolio to supplement these other things? And you can only really answer that question when you've given the lifestyle expenses.
Figuring out the income that's coming in, the income that you need, determining the gap in between the two and how to fill that. All right, step one. And of course, at Abich Financial Services, they are here to help you crunch those numbers. Reach out at theretirementkey.com. How can retiring early, 2, 5, 10 years, affect the sustainability of somebody's portfolio?
It can have a much bigger impact than people are expecting because you're getting hit from both directions, frankly. If you choose to retire early, you're losing years where you could have been contributing to those retirement accounts, receiving employer matches, allowing your investments to compound. And at the same time, you're adding years where you're actually needing to withdraw from those accounts, or potentially. So retiring 2 years earlier might not sound dramatic, but you're changing both sides of the equation. So when you factor in, 5 to 10 years of early retirement, then it can start to have a really significant difference. So that's why when people come in and they ask the question, and then we run the numbers at maybe, 60 versus 62 or 65, whatever, those numbers can be really dramatically different. But that's not to scare people away and say we shouldn't have the conversation, but that's the reality. That's why, is because you're having an impact in more places than one.
Okay. Financial milestones or benchmarks, things that we could achieve before we retire, whether or not that's retiring early. In this case, considering early retirement, are there milestones or benchmarks you'd like to see somebody reach first?
We don't love those universal benchmarks that I led with at the beginning, like we need $2 million to retire or 10 times your salary, because frankly, everyone's situation is different, right? There's a lot of different pieces of the equation. So I think that the milestone really is more of just a realistic understanding of your spending. Number one, you have adequate cash reserves, you have manageable debt. All of these things are things that we can help you talk through. But a plan for healthcare, if you're retiring early, is a big one. That's another expense that people don't anticipate. And obviously a diversified portfolio, which we help people with all the time. But having that understanding, that milestone that is kind of doing the work and having the understanding of what you're actually needing or relying on your portfolio for can help you answer the question, are you ready, right? Because someone with a $2 million portfolio who only needs $50,000 from the portfolio every single year to supplement their other income sources, pension, Social Security, rental income, whatever it is in a completely different situation from someone who has $2 million saved and needs 120. Right? So really, instead of a milestone, it's more of just doing the legwork and understanding your own situation or working with someone that can help you understand that.
Okay, so somebody has started going through all these numbers that you've recommended. They're realizing that maybe they're not quite ready to retire early. Adjustments that can be made to improve chances of leaving work earlier.
Yeah. There's the obvious answers, and they're almost frustrating. It's like, of course, you could intentionally save more. You could hold off on some of these on bigger purchases just in favor of investing more money. You could potentially consider reducing expenses, see where you can cut some things out when you're retiring to make that early retirement more realistic. But ultimately, a lot of times people have done that work, and that's the first thing they're looking at. One of the things that people don't think about quite as often is when you're considering the size of that gap, maybe you're in your mid to late 50s or early 60s, do you really need to continue working and earning the same level of income that you're earning right now? Do you need that much more? We meet with people all the time that have, a good nest egg saved. They have some retirement income potentially that they're, even if it's just Social Security, that they could lean on if they need it. And the amount that they need to fill that gap, so to speak, is dramatically less. Even if they were to go get a job at their favorite coffee shop or do something for fun, consulting, part-time work, anything, that early retirement doesn't have to look like cut and dry. And I think that those are the kind of the things that you should think through as you're approaching this time, is you get to a point where you don't need the same level of income or the same level of savings, but it's nice to bridge that gap maybe until, you're Medicare eligible at 65, whatever. And we run those numbers with people all the time.
Are there any other misconceptions people have or should be aware of when considering retiring before age 65?
Yeah, there's a few. So number one is that assuming that your full retirement age and the age that you claim Social Security have to be the same, you're able to turn on benefits anywhere within that range of 62 to 70. If you're a widow, you can claim a little bit earlier, or a surviving spouse. And in others thinking that you won't be able to access your retirement accounts pre-59 and a half. I mean, everybody that's been saving for many, many years thinks, okay, well, that 401k, that IRA plan, or that IRA account that I have, I can't touch it until I retire. That's not always the case. There are exceptions, including things like the rule of 55 for existing employer 401k plans and 72T distributions from IRAs. Those strategies have specific rules, so you don't want to do them casually. You want to do that with professional guidance or very carefully on your own if you're doing that. But early retirement doesn't necessarily mean that your retirement accounts are completely inaccessible, right? And then the other misconception that people make is that assuming spending automatically goes down when you retire. You don't want to overestimate spending, because there's kind of two sides to that coin, right? Of course, you're going to spend and live it up, but you also don't want to overestimate it, because then you run the other risk where it's like, hey, you're working longer than you have to, thinking that you're going to spend all like buku bucks. The answer is somewhere in between. If you retire early, people are traveling, pursuing hobbies. You have time to do the things that you've been saving for all this time. So you don't want to build it with an artificially low or high spending number. You want to be relatively close. There's no plan that we're going to put together that we're going to know you're spending down to the cent. But I think really when you sum it up as a whole, the biggest misconception about early retirement is there's some magic number that you have to reach, when there really isn't, right? The question isn't just, do I have enough money to retire? It's, what does my lifestyle cost? What income can I count on? And what does my portfolio need to do to provide for potentially the next 30 or 40 years? And if you can answer those questions, you're in a much better place to make this decision around whether early retirement can make sense and whether you can retire now and stay retired, which obviously is the goal.
If you want to know if you can retire sooner than you maybe thought, reach out. The website's theretirementkey.com, where you can click on the links we've got posted in the show notes.